So to start out, let's talk about how to create lights in Unity. By default, whenever you start a new project, Unity will create a directional light in the scene. You can find it here in the Hierarchy panel. Go ahead and select it, and you'll see the options and parameters show up in the inspector. Let's hit F while hovering over the scene view, and you'll see that the view snaps to the directional light. Now, a directional light doesn't necessarily have a shape. The only thing that you can really change about the directional light is the direction in which the light shines. So this is very much like the sun. We can grab the rotation tool by hitting E on the keyboard, and then you can rotate it in any direction that you like to simulate the direction of the sun. Notice that it updates the skybox along with it. Now there are some parameters that you can change about the directional light. You have things like color. You have the mode in which you can use. You have intensity and the indirect multiplier for indirect lighting, global illumination. You have the shadow types that it will create. You can modify those options of those shadows to optimize your lighting capabilities. You have the ability to use cookies. Now, cookies is a little confusing because of the name, but what that is basically placing a texture over the light, and you will see the shape of that texture through the light. So think of something like a very famous superhero signal and how that's being created. That's basically a cookie. So let's take a look at some of the other light types that we have available. Now, it's important to know that this light component, across the different light types, there are a lot of similarities. And so we really don't have to go in depth with all of these different components. So let's go ahead and bring in a point light. Let's go to Create, Light, Point Light. A point light is a light that emits in all directions. A point light has a range, so how far the light will shine. At the center of the light, where the icon appears, is where it's going to be brightest. And then the light will diminish until it reaches the outside edge, where the light will reach 0. Now you also have the ability to change the color of this light, the point light itself. And again, we have mode, intensity, and even our shadow options. From here, let's take a look at the other light type. In this case, we have the spotlight. The spotlight is very similar to the directional light. However, it has a very specific shape. You'll notice that it has a range in which how far the light will shine, but then we have the spot angle, which will adjust that shape of the cone. Here you have color and the mode and even the shadow options. So spotlights are especially helpful whenever you're trying to create something like a flashlight, or perhaps even a light that is going to shine on the player character itself. So in this case, we might have our dwarf and we are in a very dark area. We might want a spotlight over the character at all times to illuminate him, even though the area itself is very dark. Perhaps we even have something like a minor cap on the character, and it's the flashlight on the front of the cap could shine outward. A spotlight would be a great solution to shine that light out in front of the character. Now, beyond this, we have one more light type, and this is called an area light. Area lights are a little bit different than the other lights. Area lights are rectangular in shape. So looking at this, if I hit F on the keyboard, we zoom in on that, you'll see the rectangular shape that we have with the area light. Now it also has a direction, as denoted by this line pointing straight down. We know that the light is pointing down, and it's also important to know that the area light is a baked only light, as represented in the name of the light component. What this means is that its source and the effect that it has on the environment in a lighting sense will only come out whenever we bake our lighting. Now in Unity by default, Unity will auto-generate our light maps at runtime. So whenever we are in the editor, it's constantly baking those lights and updating. Now with the area light, there is one option that is grayed out that you cannot control directly, and that is range. The only way to affect the range is to make adjustments to the width and to the height. In this case, it's going to adhere to whichever number is largest. So here you can see that the height is driving the range, but if I were to bring this back down and then adjust the width and go to a larger number, then it begins to affect the range. Now with this area light, you also have the ability to adjust color and intensity and the indirect multiplier. The one thing that you don't have control over is the shadow types with the area lights. Area lights, although they are a little limited, they can be very helpful, especially in architectural visualization. You could use these things for windows and overhead lighting within this rectangular shape and skylights. So a really great light type, but it does have some limited uses. Now with this light type, let's go ahead and delete it out, because the area light itself, like I said, does not actually give us any light unless it's baked in. Now we'll talk about baking lights at a later time. So now that we've talked about the different light types, let's start to build our scene by adding these different lights in, and we're going to create a night scene. However, we need to create enough color and create a mood for our environment, and we'll talk about that next.